Hi, Laura. How's it going?
Hi, Zaki. Good. How are you?
Good, good.
Are you going to be able to go on camera or?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
just getting started. I'm not able to put on my extra light
Okay,
here,
good.
but it's a little dark, but I should be fine.
Yeah. Your audio is a little bit muffled. I don't know if there's anything you can do differently about that,
Let me
but
just double check.
it is a little bit staticky, or I'm not sure if there's background noise, but
Better?
yes.
There you go. That helps. I didn't have it pointed to my microphone. That was the interesting bit.
Oh, okay. And yeah, it sounds much better now. Let's see. Yeah, I started it early, and unfortunately, there's not a way to pause the recording, so we're
No
just
worries,
going to
no
keep
worries.
rolling.
No worries. I'm just
um,
gonna.
okay, looks like we have a few folks joining. If you're joining us, feel free to say hi in the chat. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from, and we'll get started here in just a couple minutes. All right, looks like we're getting close, getting a few more people in. Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you here for this Getting Started with Azure Certifications webinar. My name is Laura Hill. I'm with Cloud Institute, and we're a cloud coaching and training company. We offer cloud certification training and cloud coaching to IT professionals. And we try to only teach you the skills you actually need in the workplace. So all of our trainings include hands-on challenge labs so you could practice your skills, as well as receive personalized coaching with cloud experts. And today we have Zaki Medina here to present to us on getting started with Azure certifications. And Zaki is a serial entrepreneur. He's a multi-cloud and data expert, a solutions architect, and a certified cloud instructor. He holds and maintains multiple Azure certifications and very passionate about cloud technology. So I'm really excited to have him here to present to us today. We're expecting to run about 30 minutes. And so as we go along the way, feel free to ask questions in the chat box. You can either send it to the group or to me privately, and we'll answer as we go, or we'll get to them at the end we'll have some time for Q&A. So everyone will receive a link to this webinar recording when it's over. A little later today, we'll send that out, and we'll also let you download the presentation deck at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Zaki.
Thank you so much, Laura. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. My name is Zaki Medina. We have a very fun-filled schedule today, so why don't we get straight into it? Very basically, four questions. Why Azure certifications, and and then we really look at, whether your employer uses Azure today, or you're thinking of a future that's multi-cloud. Maybe you're just a curious cat that just wants to catch all the certs, right? And Azure is just one of them. You're definitely in the right place. So we'll go in and double click into the fundamental certifications and associate certifications and so on. This is really part one of our webinar, meaning there's a part two where we do the follow up, where we look at expert certifications and other specialty certifications at the same time next week, right? So you can think of this as part one, and part two is where we go further into more higher level, deeper certification story. So the first question is, why Azure certifications? Like, why would you be moving into Azure? And obviously, for a lot of you, and for it's a big motivation to have a high-paying cloud career. So Azure is a great place. It's a great choice. In fact, a lot of organizations today are actually migrating to Azure, right? And as a result, you know, uh, Azure is a great cloud platform. And so I've been working with Azure for many number of years. But what I wanted to do is just take a look at some of the things around, Azure certifications, right? So this is just the generic cloud certification thing, and obviously Azure fits into that. But you've got all these different roles today, like starting from, if I read from right to left, I should have made the slide left to right, but you have got your cloud administrator and your security analyst, your network engineer, automation engineer. What's funny is that I actually started my career as a network engineer, and as a result, all those network workloads are actually moving to the cloud. All the server workloads are moving to the cloud. And now with data and AI contributing about 50% of the new cloud that's coming up, a lot of those workloads are also moving to the cloud. So cloud is here to stay, guys. And as a result, I wanted to go into, this certification journey that you're beginning, right? What's the point of Azure certifications, right? And Azure certifications are great, and a lot of these Azure certifications are based on job roles. So that means, your Azure certification is going to show your employer whether you have a specific skill set for a typical role and so on. Now, with the Azure certification, sometimes it gets a little confusing with their naming convention, and I'll talk a bit about that a little later for no one. But what I wanted to do is just start off with, what are certifications to begin with, right? So certifications are essentially, you know, and we'll, when I talk about Azure, we'll also mix it up and do a bit of multi-cloud as well. So clear up any misconceptions around certifications. And the reason for that is, this is important because you're going to spend a lot of time, money, and energy into earning them. So you want to understand, hey, what are certifications and what are they not? Certifications are essentially proof of knowledge. They're not really a substitute for experience, of cloud experience or anything. A lot of them, and then we'll find out, assumes that you've actually been working in the cloud and you want to validate that knowledge, that acumen, that expertise by obtaining these certifications. A lot of times for certifications, especially in my earlier part of my career, what they're door openers, right? They can basically help us open the door for an interview or even earn a promotion. They're not really a guarantee for a job, because a job is not just, hey, you have the certification, it's a checkbox. There's many other factors that go into that. And at the same time, certifications are very valuable, right? There's a reason why these average salaries are, looked at. And, like for instance, for cloud architects, the salary range is anywhere from 100K to 250K, even to some cases. That's sort of what I've seen in the marketplace, right? So certifications are not just about earning. It's more than that. It's really even about getting a common language. Hey, here's what we talk about. Here's what we, do. This is our common language, and so on. So that's where certifications play a big role. So now that we know why certifications, now what are some of the reasons that you want to do, Azure certifications? And Azure as a cloud has certain strengths, right? And Microsoft plays its certain strengths. Part of that is there's a lot of legacy foothold of Microsoft in a lot of organizations, and that's where Microsoft becomes an easy first choice for organizations that are still hung up on on-premise environments, right? And it could be that, hey, you have no choice. Like I worked for a utility company until 10 years ago, and they couldn't go to the cloud given the governance and compliance and security footprint at that time. But now, guess what? Cloud has matured so much that they're thinking about, hey, why didn't we think about moving all our workloads there, right? And so some of the things that come up for individuals when they think about, hey, I want to go into Azure and get an Azure certification is maybe your employer, current future, is using Azure, or maybe your your employer or your company has a multi-cloud, and or hey, I just like having the certifications across all the different cloud vendors, right? I got to catch them all like Pokemon. So that's really, really big news for us. And so with cloud, Microsoft Azure sort of pushes hard into the enterprise space. And so Azure has been there around. Microsoft's been in almost 95% of Fortune 500 companies. So pretty sure it's going to be sticking around. So whatever certification you do on Azure, it's going to be there around. Another thing is Microsoft was one of the first cloud search to be done remotely, right, from home during the pandemic and so on. So those were some really good pieces. And then I would say the big one for me is in 2022 was Azure certs are now free to renew indefinitely, right? So that's a big one. Azure decided, hey, why are we going to turn this into yes, there was a money discussion. They're losing money as a result of doing this versus other cloud providers. But I think in the end, it generates more value for the end user, for folks doing their certifications and saying, hey, you're making the investment. We assume you're going to be working on this, and we're going to make sure that you continue to do that. And as a result, Azure was one of the first cloud vendors to just let all of their content go for free. Like they basically have released a lot of the core content from which the exam is built for free. Now, that doesn't mean that courses are going away, doesn't mean labs are going away. You still need to understand that. You still need to do that. And we'll have a little bit about that down the road here. So let's jump right in. In terms of Azure certifications overview, there's really four levels, right? So Microsoft, has a smorgasbord of certifications, right? You could say that. And as a result, they've got about several role-based certifications and a few three fundamental ones and a few specialty ones. And we're going to look at some of what those are. But essentially, you know, you can look at these four levels like fundamentals, associate, expert, and specialty. Basically, it means where do you start. So fundamentals is basically where you begin. It's for beginners. They basically offer an ideal starting point for anyone that's new to cloud or Azure for that matter. And Azure assumes a lot of the fundamentals content is actually kind of cloud agnostic to begin with. Then you have your associate. So now, we assume you've done the fundamentals, you know your way around Azure cloud, and you're getting comfortable. Now, whether you're a developer, an engineer, or an architect, you can basically look at some of these associate certifications to help organize. So it's all about doing, is how do I deploy DevOps in the Azure environment? How do I plan, create, and deliver that software? Guess what? There's an associate certification for that, right? So, and then we move on to experts. Now, experts is assuming you've gone through the fundamentals associate certifications. You've actually, built enough around your certification, your work experience, and now you've got some serious technical chops, right? So now you can go to the next step. And a lot of the Azure expert certifications, like solution architect expert, assumes you have experience across multiple domains. Like for instance, you have both the admin, the developer, the DevOps, right? All of those pieces coming together. And then we have our specialty certifications, and these are mostly around key specific use cases or point solutions, or like specifically for IoT, for virtual desktop virtualization. All of those things come in, come in for us, right? So um, And so one of the things is, this is sort of the overview of how all the certifications look like. We're looking at three fundamental certificates. There's the AZ900, which is your basic cloud, then going into data, right? Data fundamentals like DP900, and then AI 900. Now, for a lot of you, this is kind of counterintuitive. When you see, hey, the fundamentals have a 900 code and some of the expert has like a 300 and a 400, what does that mean? So the numbering nomenclature in Microsoft Azure, and I didn't do this, is inverted, meaning a 900 course is actually the beginning, and all the way up to 100 would be the most expert level or most technical depth. So that was very interesting, right? That they've reversed numbering, and I don't know why. That never made sense to me. I have yet someone to give me an answer on that. So I mean, when you think about university, back in college, university, you would take a 100-year, 100 level course, 200 level, 300, and you'll build on top of that, right? But they went the opposite way. So just keep that in mind. Again, provide your feedback to Azure about that. But this is sort of the naming conversation. And then we're going to be talking about associate as well and all of these. So we'll double click into all of these today. But the thing to take away from this slide is today we're going to be covering fundamentals and associate. And then next week we're going to be covering expert and specialty. So do stay around for our October 5th webinar here. And we'll place the link here on our chat here for you guys. And so let's jump in. And so this is sort of the certification path, right? You basically start with the fundamentals, and then based on those fundamentals, you can then, some of these fundamentals, you can still jump to the associate. There's no hard prerequisite, but it's always recommended to do the prerequisite ahead of time, right? For some of you, that's probably a better approach, and so on. So that's basically what we're looking at. So let's jump in. Let's jump into our Azure fundamentals certifications. Um, so Azure fundamentals, basically this is your best Microsoft Azure certification for beginners. It is actually the go-to starting point for anybody that's new to cloud or Microsoft Azure. This is like the root, the seed of all the certifications that you do, right? So this one, if you think about Azure 101, this is it. This is the course. And they cover topics like, what does cloud computing mean? Some fundamental foundational cloud concepts, some of the things around cloud scalability, fault tolerance, capex and opex, like why would you go cloud? What's sort of the business, business validation around that? With the whole premise around cloud is it's now basically pay as you go, which changes the dynamic from businesses. Because anyone who's done any financial statements is that you basically pay for what you get, and you're not tying up any of your working capital or any of that from an upfront cost perspective. So great. So now, who is AZ900 for? It's really for anyone, any aspiring developers, IT pros, even non-technical people. In fact, Microsoft has made all their fundamental course accessible to non-technical people, and it's very interesting that a lot of non-technical people love these fundamental courses, actually built with them in mind as well. So, the cert isn't mandatory to climb up the Azure ladder, but it's really a solid first step as you go on to, as you start your journey. And feel free to click on the register here now. Thank you, Lara, for posting that. We have our webinar registration link for advanced Azure certifications for those that may be interested in those courses. So let's jump to DP900. Now, as I mentioned before, data and AI is becoming the fastest growing workloads moving to the cloud or in the cloud to begin with. So they're kind of cloud native to begin with. But this is a great first step certification for any data focused cloud practitioners, both technical and non-technical. And we know how data has become the new enterprise asset. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So, we cover things like core data concepts. What is the difference between relational and non-relational data on Azure, whether it's SQL versus NoSQL? We understand those differences. We look at some analytic workloads in Azure and some of the traditional, how do you store that data? Do you store it in a simple database or all the way to something complex like a data warehouse? And how do you even get that data into the data warehouse? What are our different data ingestion, processing, and visualization of that data? For some of you very familiar with Excel, right? Excel is actually a great 2D data analysis tool. And if you leverage it with Power BI, it creates these wonderful data visualization elements for that, right? So maybe you're interested in that. And so DP900 is a starting block for learning the basics of how to get started working with data in the cloud. And then one of my personal favorite courses, the AI 900. Again, this is a certification both for beginners, for both technical and non-technical backgrounds. And if you want to understand the basics of AI, specifically around, machine learning, right? Like, what does that look like today, and so on. So machine learning, we look at what are the various AI workloads and considerations. What does machine learning mean, right? In context, right? In Azure, what are some and with Azure, what's really nice is there's some off-the-shelf solutions that are available, and these solutions are either computer vision, natural language processing, or conversational AI workloads, example, chatbots, things of that nature. And that's really having access to what's there available within Azure. And if you want to build your own AI model or machine learning model, you can do that as well. We cover a bit of that as well. So it's great for AI engineers, data scientists, developers, and solution architects. A lot of times folks come into AI 900 wanting to understand, hey, what does AI can do for an enterprise, and then how do I deploy it in the cloud? And again, it's meant for both folks. Again, a little programming and technical knowledge helps a lot in this particular course. So there are a couple of labs. They're mostly, they're already, you don't have to code anything. You just have to know how to download it and run it so you can just see the output, right? That's really what it is just show the potential of what's possible with AI in the enterprise context. So that's sort of the high level overview of our Azure associate, fundamental certifications. Now we jump into some of our, I'll go through some of the popular ones. I know we're kind of running out of time here. Um, and so looking at Azure admin, this is actually the Azure management basics for the IT crowd, right? So if you know a bit about the cloud and how the cloud's doing things, you want to learn more about the how to, right? I would say this is really it. And a lot of times folks ask me, hey, there's no prerequisites, but when should I really take the exam? The answer is really, if you have 6 months worth of Azure hands-on experience, that's a great starting point to really go in, because you'll cover topics like how to do backups, how to manage resource groups, subscription management, how to look after the compute, storage, and the identity management, right? And even just getting the basic networking and things through load balancer and VNets and all of that. So those are some of the basic stuff. So this is one of Azure's top paying certifications, right? You want to get into the Azure management game. This is a no-brainer, right? This assumes you know enough about AZ 900, the fundamentals. Now you can go into AZ 104. It's a very popular course. It covers the basics of cloud storage, security, networking, and compute, right? Then we jump into developer associate, right? AZ204. Now AZ204 again is a great solid first step. This is mostly for developers that want to develop apps and services in Azure. So how do you design, build, test, and maintain those apps in the cloud context? Again, this one requires a little more in-depth, assuming that you are a developer with some background. Some of the supported languages are C#, which is Microsoft Java, PHP, Java itself, Python, or JavaScript, right? Like any of these favors. And there's also support for Go coming in as well. So those are some of the things. So AZ204, again, assuming you have that. They actually make you sign. They're not going to make you sign a permission form, but please note there are some labs in there that if you're not familiar with that, do some extra legwork before going for that certification. So you look at things on how to manage a cluster, a container cluster, which is containers, several containers working together in a cluster. How do you manage all the different services that will run on it? How to do role-based access control, infrastructure as a service, and how to leverage some of the platform as a service solutions like Azure Cosmos DB, which is a great relational database. Actually, it's a multimodal database. It can do both relational and non-relational, which is SQL and NoSQL workloads as well. So great starting point. So these are some of the things I just wanted to call out. And I'm going a little fast here just to give you sort of a synopsis. Again, you can double click into these and find out. Now, Azure Database Administrator Associate, I come from the data world, right? So I was a DB admin and a network admin. So this is sort of the starting point, right? You're an Azure Database Pro. You want to know the ins and outs of relational databases within Azure. This is the great point, right? So Microsoft people eyeing this search to really understand all the concepts covered in DP900. I often recommend students to just do DP900, even experienced pros, just to refresh your database knowledge and so on. So some of the things we look at is, how do you plan and implement the right type of data platform resources? Because remember, with cloud, there are several ways to do something, right? That's typical of any cloud, but how do you find the right way to build something, right? So there are many solutions that all solve the same kind of use case, but what's the right mix? And part of that will be based on your timeline, your risk profile, what your team understands, and so on. All of that good stuff, as well as the price, right? So again, we look at how to build a secure environment, how to build high availability, disaster recovery, and even to do a lot of the automation and so on, right? So pervasive automation is a key aspect of this. for us. So, I just want to call that out here. Now, with respect to security is really important. So this is basically, you know, if you think about it, cloud is growing, and the reason it's growing is because its security is 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 being better. In fact, security in the cloud is better than almost every on-premise cloud security out there, right? And I challenge people, as I've built restricted and regulated industries where the security footprint is so huge and the on-premise, those are workloads are now moving to the cloud. So this is sort of a newer Azure certification, very high demand. It talks about, how do you help an organization keep its network data and applications secure in a cloud world, right? So AZ 500, again, a very flagship, cert from Azure. We expect, even though there's no prerequisite, there's going to be need for strong scripting and automation chops. Plus, you need to have familiarity with networking, virtualization, storage, and all those things that are necessary. And there is an emphasis on understanding how the analytics pieces work, and when you have those analytics, what those alerts that are generated, how do you look at those alerts and go into the Azure infrastructure and really look at it. And the big thing about cloud is all about identity management, because that's really a low-hanging fruit that we control as users, and a lot of times special attention has to be put in. So again, cloud security, highly sought after a place. So, we really want to make sure we get all of those things addressed in that. So what does this mean for you? Well, cloud security, a lot of, a friend of mine once said, hey, cloud security equals job security, right? These jobs pay really well even after a few years of experience. But, all the crazy innovations that are happening in tech all come with security pieces as well. So it's a great cert to look at as well if you're interested in that. And then finally, these are some of the certs that I teach, right? So DP 100, so again, if you're eyeing this cert, you're probably thinking about making a transition to data or machine learning skills, and you want to really bring your skills up to warp speed on Azure. This is a great place. This is where you can take data and turn them into those sweet actionable insights that businesses love. Again, this course, there's a lot of confusion that this course will not teach you to become a data scientist. It assumes you are a data scientist or you understand how a data scientist works, and it teaches you how to leverage those data science workloads in the Azure cloud, right? So it's a 3-day course, great course. So if you're a data scientist today and you really want to build, you know, just that story around, how do I build this up, right? This is a great place, right, where we teach you all the elements of you know, sorry, we'll teach you all the elements of how to build a machine learning model, whether you want to take some of the pre-built models or build your own model. How do you evaluate that model performance in the cloud? How do you understand the constraints? And then also deploying aspects of responsible machine learning or responsible AI, which is a big thing is with AI, it's not a black box. There's a way to protect the data and data privacy and data protection, all of those things. So this is definitely the course if you're an aspiring or current data scientist and you want to get more out of your Azure. So this is the course for you. Now, the thing with the next course is I also teach that course is the AI engineer course. This one is a really popular course. This is a new course. It used to be called AI 100, it's now AI 102. It basically tells you, you don't have to know that AI is such a big topic. You don't need to know everything. Here, we just talk about the off-the-shelf solutions available from Azure and how to leverage them into into your workloads, right? So there's even if you're coming from a non-technical background, AI 102 you'll be able to do some things. If you have some background, you've coded a couple of times in high school or college, understand some basics about Python and software development, and you have some basic, you brushed up on data science, math, and statistics. This is a course for you. Most of the time, you'll be deploying cloud solutions using some standard data and then building that. And you'll also be able to build bots and so on, chat bots and so on. So this is a great course if you have a bit of programming knowledge and you want to understand. I actually have a lot of product managers and program managers and PMs that actually come to this course who have a background in software development as well. So it's a very popular course for them to come in. And then finally, we have Azure Stack a hub operator, and this is sort of a newer certification. What Azure Stack Hub means is that you want to bring Azure, the cloud, into your on-premise environment. This is the course for you, right? So you can get all the benefits of hybrid cloud, which is both on-premise and cloud, and you'll understand how to take full ownership and control of your data, right? So again, this is basically strong understanding of Azure plus on-premise environment and how you build sort of the whole DevOps process and hybrid development model around it. So that's what the Azure Stack Hub is. And then finally, network engineer. This is mostly around, this is a newer, this is a newer cert, but it's a very big cert because it assumes it builds more on the networking knowledge from AZ 104. This actually takes you down the VNet, the virtual network rabbit hole, right? Where you really look at all aspects of hybrid networking, core networking, implementing routing, monitoring networking, and private access. So many years ago, I worked for a company called Cisco. I have a CCIE, network engineer. So it's at that level, I would say AZ 900 of expertise. So this is that. And then finally, we have sort of our, you know, Windows Server Hybrid Administrator, right? This is actually a combination because there's just so much on the server side. A lot of people still rely on Windows Server that they've traditionally have been, they say they've been traditionally left out of the computing love. So this gap is now being filled. So this is a very new cert. It basically is a giant cert. It consists of 2 exams, and it assumes you've had knowledge on working with Windows Server. You've passed the AZ 104. These are the 2 things I think you need. And then you can really go and look after an organization, their whole Active Directory domain services in a hybrid environment. You can deploy both virtual machines, containers, and the right type of networking, whether it's on-premise, hybrid, and how to manage those workloads, look after them, and so on. So that's your typical server admin or network slash server admin uh, KP. So these are some of the big, um, search that's there. And now in terms of next steps, I'll pass it off to Lara here. And, I hope you guys have enjoyed the chat today. I'm going to look at the questions here while Lara, you wrap us up here. You bring it home.
All right. Thank you so much, Zaki. What a great wealth of information you are. And I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to a couple of things that Cloud Institute offers to help you in your Azure certification journey. Firstly, the Azure Challenge Labs, which I just posted the link. You can actually practice your skills with our labs. So definitely check that out. And we only have another minute or two to wrap this up here. But also, we are running a special 50% off our Azure Bootcamp. So if you're looking to get Azure certification, then check out this bootcamp where you can get a 50% discount with the code bootcamp50 at checkout. And so, as always, if you have questions, we're happy to help you. Please reach out to us at Cloud Institute, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have about any of these.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Is there any questions? Let me just check. No one has any questions. I think we're good. Awesome. So everyone, as Lara mentioned, boot camps are a great way to learn. It's immersion. You get A to Z very quickly. Definitely do stick. I hope to see all of you in the next one on October 5th webinar. And we pasted the link for the registration page for the next webinar. So good. Hope everyone having a good afternoon.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.